Have you ever felt it? That sudden, cold shiver of irritability when someone else succeeds? Or that intrusive, dark thought that flashes across your mind in the silence of the 3 a.m. hour? A thought so alien, so not you, that you immediately push it back into the basement of your consciousness. You carry a secret. It's the version of yourself that you never post on social media. It is the lurker within you, the one who observes the world with a mix of exhaustion and silent judgment, feeling fundamentally disconnected from the noisy, superficial performance of modern life. You might think this makes you bad or perhaps broken. You might feel a lingering sense of shame because you cannot seem to be the happy, productive, and normal person the world demands you to be. If you are listening to this, it is because you have realized that your mask is becoming too heavy to wear. You are here because you possess a hyper-rational mind that can no longer ignore the hidden variables of your own unhappiness. You feel like an outsider looking in, a student of the human condition who feels everything deeply but reveals almost nothing to the outside world. This internal friction, this war between who you pretend to be and the dark, unacknowledged shadow that follows you, is not a pathology. It is not a flaw in your design. In fact, it is the most honest part of you. Today, we are going to stop running. We are going to step into the dark academia of the soul to understand the mechanics of your hidden self. We are going to diagnose why you feel this way, not to fix you, but to validate the profound depth of your existence. You are not alone in your darkness. You are simply part of a silent collective that has been taught to fear the very thing that makes them whole. Welcome to the study of your shadow. Society tells you that your darkness is a problem to be solved. They call your silence awkwardness, and your withdrawal depression. We live in an era of toxic positivity, where the digital world demands a constant broadcast of light, energy, and smiles. But as a student of the human psyche, you know better. You understand that this high-energy YouTube culture is often just a thin veil for a profound emptiness. Let us be your advocate for a moment. Those dark thoughts, that cynicism, and that desire to retreat into the shadows are not signs of failure. They are, in fact, your private protector. When you refuse to post, when you choose to be a lurker instead of a performer, you are practicing a form of digital asceticism. You are protecting the purity of your being from a world that wants to commodify your every emotion. Think about the wounded child within you. Perhaps you were forced to hide your true feelings early on to survive a household where your emotions were inconvenient. Your shadow was born as a sanctuary, a place where you could keep your truest, rawest self safe from judgment. Society calls you antisocial, but in reality, you are simply hyper-rational. You see the hidden variables behind the social games people play, and you find them exhausting. You are not less than because you carry a heavy shadow. You are deeper. While the world is loud and shallow, you are quiet and profound. Your inability to fit into their brightly lit, superficial boxes is a badge of intellectual and emotional complexity. Your darkness is not a sickness, it is the weight of your truth. Now that we have stripped away the shame, we can finally look at the mechanics of this shadow. We must move beyond the why and into the how, the philosophical architecture of your hidden self. To understand the shadow is to enter the realm of analytical psychology. We must move beyond simple self-help and look into the hidden variables that govern your psyche. Carl Jung, the pioneer of this inner exploration, suggested that the shadow is everything about ourselves that we have denied or suppressed. The parts of us that were too much or not enough for the world to handle. Imagine your life as a grand, brightly lit stage. You are the actor performing the role society expects of you. But beneath that stage lies a basement, dark and silent. This is where you have thrown your anger, your unacceptable desires, and your unconventional thoughts. Jung called this the shadow. But here is the hyper-rational truth. The more light you try to cast on the stage, the darker and more powerful the shadow in the basement becomes. In the language of ancient alchemy, this confrontation with your darkness is known as Nigredo. Nigredo is the blackening, a stage of decay, sorrow, and chaotic dissolution. It is the dark night of the soul that you are currently experiencing. You might feel as though you are falling apart, but from a philosophical perspective, this is a necessary developmental determinism. You are not breaking, you are being broken down, so that you can be reconstructed into something more resilient, the stoic self. Why does this happen? We must look at your developmental determinism, the wounded child. Perhaps your shadow was formed by a father wound or the experience of being the excluded child. These are the hidden variables that dictate your current weakness. You were taught that to be loved, you must hide your darkness. But in doing so, you traded your wholeness for perfection. The path to existential reconstruction is not to destroy the shadow, but to integrate it. This is the shadow work. It is the process of going into that basement and realizing that the monsters you feared are actually your greatest sources of energy. Your anger, when integrated, becomes your boundaries. Your sadness, when integrated, becomes your depth. Your darkness is the fuel for your transformation. You are not a victim of your past. You are a student of your own evolution. By embracing the Nigredo, you are performing a form of psychological alchemy, turning the lead of your shame into the gold of a profound and superior soul. This is the logic of the inner system. It is a system that does not require you to be happy, but requires you to be true. Once you accept that your pain is a sign of your depth, you no longer have to fear the dark. You are simply becoming whole. You have spent so long hiding in the silence, believing you were alone in your complexity. But this space is different. This is a sanctuary where the masks we wear in the noisy world are no longer required. We are a collective of observers, of lurkers who find more truth in the stillness than in the spectacle. Your silence has never been emptiness. It has always been depth. Now, I invite you to step out of the shadows just long enough to speak your truth. Consider this comment section our collective confessional. What part of your shadow have you been afraid to look at? What hidden variable did you discover today? Share your story below, not for the world to judge, but for this community to witness. Remember, your pain is not a pathology. It is a sign of an awakening soul. We are all students here, learning to turn our darkness into gold. Subscribe to remain within this sanctuary. Until next time, stay quiet, stay deep, and continue the work.